You know, some movies are fun, some are huge hits, but then every so often, a movie comes along that just completely changes everything. It doesn't just entertain, it rewrites the rules. And today, that's what we're talking about. The 1994 game changer, Pulp Fiction. I mean, this quote from a fan on Reddit just nails it, right? Even 3 decades later, this is how people feel. Think about it. Every single scene is iconic. Every line, every song, it's all just seared into our brains. So what was it? Why was this movie such a bolt of lightning? Okay, so to really get why Pulp Fiction hit so hard, we gotta set the scene. You have to understand what Hollywood looked like when this thing dropped. The early 90s, well, let's just say the movie world was ripe for a wake-up call. So picture this. Hollywood in the early 90s was all about the safe bet. Sequels, predictable blockbusters, you know the drill. I saw a Reddit user describe it perfectly, saying it was like hair metal and overproduced rock music overstaying its welcome. That's so good. Hollywood was just stale. It was desperate for something with a real edge. In the indie film scene, it was still pretty niche. Definitely hadn't broken into the mainstream yet. And this is where a kind of academic-sounding word becomes super important. Postmodernism. Now stay with me here. Pulp Fiction didn't invent this stuff, but man, it became the ultimate example of it. Think of postmodernism as the film's secret sauce. It's all about mashing up high art with pop culture, winking at other movies, messing with time, and just dripping with irony. So yeah, Pulp Fiction isn't just a movie, it's a movie that's obsessed with other movies. So where did this all come from? Well, it came from the mind of Quentin Tarantino. And here's the thing. He didn't go to some fancy film school. No siree. He called himself a film fan director. His film school was the video store he worked at, where he just devoured movies all day, every day. All that knowledge, all those B-movies and foreign films, that became his superpower. All right, so armed with this, encyclopedic brain full of movie trivia, Tarantino sets out to do something totally different. And the very first rule he decides to just shatter, the most basic one of all, how you tell a story from beginning to end. So look at this. On one side, you've got your typical movie. A leads to B, leads to C. Straight line, easy peasy. But then you've got Pulp Fiction. It's all jumbled up, told in chapters, completely out of order. You've got a main character who dies, in the middle of the movie, and then pops back up in the last scene, totally fine. The fun for us, the audience, is putting all those puzzle pieces together in our heads. And you have to understand, back then, this felt mind-blowing. People had never seen anything like it on this scale. It wasn't just a cheap trick. It made the whole movie feel smarter, almost like reading a really cool novel. It made you lean in and pay attention because you weren't just a passive viewer. Nope, you were an active participant trying to solve the puzzle. But listen, the scrambled up timeline, that was only part of the magic. The other big revolution was happening right in the script with the dialogue. See, in Pulp Fiction, you have these long conversations that seem to be about, well, nothing. Foot massages, cheeseburgers, you name it. But they're not about nothing at all. They're about everything. They're how we get to know these characters, they build this incredible tension, and they drop little hints about what's coming. The dialogue isn't just there to move the story along. For long stretches, the dialogue is the story. I mean, come on, who can forget this? It's just two guys in a car talking about fast food. Or this debate over a $5 milkshake, which somehow becomes one of the most tense and flirtatious scenes in the whole movie. And then a line as simple and final as this. These lines are so quotable because they feel real, even in this totally surreal criminal underworld. Tarantino is the master of making the ordinary sound extraordinary. So you take that crazy nonlinear story, you mix in that unforgettable dialogue, and what do you get? A full-blown cultural explosion. We're not just talking about a successful movie here. This was a phenomenon, a total takeover. And this quote about a revolutionary tornado outbreak isn't an exaggeration. That's really what it felt like. People were leaving the theater just buzzing. They were stunned. They knew they had just seen something that was gonna change things. It was the definition of a you have got to see this movie. And the fallout was immediate. And I mean everywhere. The soundtrack, it went multi-platinum. You couldn't escape it. John Travolta, his career was basically dead in the water, and overnight, he was one of the biggest stars in the world again. That poster of Uma Thurman on the bed, it was on every single college dorm room wall, I swear. And for years after, it seemed like every up-and-coming director was just trying to make their own Pulp Fiction clone. Which actually brings up this really interesting idea. It's called the Seinfeld is unfunny trope. The idea is that when something is so new and so revolutionary, everyone copies it. And eventually those innovations just become normal. They become part of the background noise. So for someone watching Pulp Fiction for the first time today, they might think, what's the big deal? But that's the point. The big deal is that all the things we now take for granted, the jumbled timelines, the clever dialogue, the cool, chatty criminals, Pulp Fiction did it first. It changed the entire language of movies. So, let's look past the posters and the wallets and the soundtrack. What's the real lasting impact here? How did this one indie film totally reshape Hollywood for good? Well, for one thing, it made a ton of money. This quote calls it the Star Wars of independent film, and that's not crazy. It proved, without a doubt, that a weird, talky, unconventional movie could be a giant blockbuster. It blew the doors open. Suddenly, the big studios realized, whoa, wait a minute. People are actually starving for movies that are smart and cool and different. And the ripple effect is just undeniable. You can literally trace the line from Pulp Fiction to so many great films and filmmakers that came after. Think about the twisty plot of Memento, or the fast-talking criminals in a movie like Snatch. Think about directors like Paul Thomas Anderson or Edgar Wright or Rian Johnson. Pulp Fiction basically gave a whole new generation of filmmakers a license to be weird, to be bold, to break the rules. And that really leaves us with a big question to chew on. In the world we live in now, which is all about sequels, superheroes, and streaming content, could a movie like Pulp Fiction, something so original, so strange, so completely itself, could it even get made, let alone become a massive culture-defining hit? It's something to think about, isn't it?